So today we're talking about some images that I shot back in 2005. It's now 2021. So I'm doing some reflection on the images that I shot in 2005 and where I was at then and where I'm at now, where the world was at then, where the world is at now, where photography was at then, where photography is at now. And it's interesting how much 15 or 16 years can change things. One of my favorite things about going through an archive of old work is getting transported back to that time period. 2005 was a very different place in my life and in the world from where it's at now. In 2005, pretty much everyone was shooting on film. We were starting to have that transition from film to digital. There were a few cameras that were starting to be good enough, but you had to have digital backs that you put on a medium format camera in order to be able to do a shoot professionally. And now pretty much everything is digital. And looking back at the images that I shot in 2005, which were on film, I have to say I'm preferring the tone and texture of film. I feel like everything that's happened over the last year and a half has had me zoom out on my photography and the style I've been shooting, why I've been shooting what I've been shooting, and really get clear. I think I had gotten kind of in the momentum of just one shoot after another, and I'm shooting on my digital camera, and these are the backdrops I have, and this is the equipment that I have, and just kind of churning them out. I mean, of course I was putting thought and effort and my heart into them, but there's something that happens when you get out of that energetic momentum and stop and reflect and really think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the results are. And I'm feeling like with everything in 2021 being so digital, Zoom meetings, Google meetings, FaceTime, YouTube, I love YouTube, that it's also making me want to swing the pendulum in the other direction and do more film and do more tangible art. Over the last year and a half, I've been painting on canvases, I've been painting on photographs, I've been revisiting film, because it just, there's something about the digital cyber world and not being able to have physical attainment of something you've created. You can see it, but you can't touch it. And not, with a photograph, sometimes you want to be able to print it out and hold it. And I mean, you can do that with digital, but it's got a different quality to it. I've also been thinking a lot about why I became a photographer. And when I was 10 years old, my mom gave me a camera. My dad had passed away, and my mom asked my brother and I if we wanted his camera or his guitar. And those were his two favorite hobbies. And I chose his camera, and my brother chose his guitar. I ended up going off to school for photography and pursuing photography, and my brother went off to school for music. So clearly that stuck with both of us, and I knew I was carrying around the camera because it was my dad's. I carried it everywhere. I built my first darkroom when I was 12. Like, I was really excited about it, but I think my excitement was also part of the connection I had with it being my dad's camera. It wasn't until I was a little bit older that the memory of him started to fade, and I started realizing I couldn't remember what he looked like. And so I went digging through all of our old photos, digging through the archives, digging through all of our old photos, and there were very, very few of him, because he was always the one behind the camera. And that was when I realized I needed photographs of the people in my life that I loved. And I needed photographs of the places that I visited, so that when the memories started to fade, I had a photograph to look at to remember. And that was when I decided I'm going to be a photographer for the rest of my life. And that was it. That was the moment. But then I went off to college, and I started realizing that, okay, if I'm going to be a photographer professionally, I have to turn this into a career and make money at it. And it started to have an evolution around that time. It didn't fully evolve into that until probably 2010. But you know, once kind of you have to support yourself doing something that you love to do, the way you're coming at it changes. And I think that in 2005, when I did the shoot of Adrena, I was still in the mode of doing what I love to do. We both worked at the studio together. We were at about the same level. At that time, I was a studio coordinator. She was at the front desk. And we were both, I don't think she was on the hills yet, and we were both just like two girls that worked together that went and did a photo shoot, and it was fun. And I was doing it very much for fun and not as a career at that time. And the thing that's interesting is when I reflect back on the images that I shot when I was doing it because I wanted to record the people in my life to remember them and doing it for fun, I had a much different result. And I feel like the last year and a half has given me the opportunity to zoom out, stop, reflect, and think about the why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I got lost in the survival of it. And I feel like going through the archives of Adrena kind of took me back to a shoot that I did at a time when I was just doing it because I loved to do it. I was just doing it because, you know, I thought she was a great person and I wanted to record her so that I could remember her. And, you know, I photographed all of my friends and people that I knew in my life because I wanted to remember them. I wanted to create a time capsule of the people in my world and the people around me that I thought were special, that I wanted documentation of, so that if my memory of them ever faded, I would be able to retrieve those memories in physical form. And I think going through these archives has reignited that in me, where I'm like, okay. But there was an element of thinking about, what does the client want? You know, what do I need to deliver to make the client happy? As opposed to thinking about, who is the person in front of me and how can I best record them so that I and the world can remember them for who they are. And I think going through the archives has been an important reflection on the why I'm doing photography, so I can get back to that very reason. I also think about where I was at when I was doing those shoots. And, you know, in 2005, I had just started working at the studio. I was super excited to be at the studio and have all of the big photographers come through. Everyone from like Annie Leibovitz, Stephen Meisel was big at that time. It was so exciting. Photography has changed so much. It really has. I remember back in 2005, you know, people would talk about how Stephen Meisel wouldn't even step out of bed in the morning for a shoot unless he was paid $60,000 a day. I just don't think that's where the world is at now. It's definitely not where I'm at. Would be nice. Again, talking about money and photography, that's where it gets tricky. It gets really tricky. It gets really tricky to do what you love, but also support yourself doing what you love. So yeah, I guess I'm getting clear on what I need to focus on. And, you know, hopefully maybe this has given you some things to think about. Why are you doing what you're doing? And, you know, have you gotten lost in the hustle of it? Do you need to go back and, you know, get to the core of why and, you know, give it some thought?